I'm going to get us started in the NFL on a Thursday night, Higgins, because the Rams take on the Seahawks, and I already have a future on the Seahawks, and the Seahawks would pretty much need to win this one for my future to come home, and they're home dogs, so I'm all over it on a primetime Thursday night game. The team that doesn't need to travel, they're dogs. I'm already kind of betting on them anyway, Higgins, so why not double down? Seahawks plus 120 on the money line. I really love that regardless of my previous bet. But yeah, I think that is the play here. Seahawks also plus 2.5 on the spread. But if I were to take the spread in this one, Higgins, I'd probably be looking for the full 3.5 points. So I might not even buy it at the 110. I might buy an alternate spread if that was something I was interested in.
Well, I'm surprised the line hasn't moved closer to that 3 or 3.5. It shows the book's hand a little bit because, Brett, we've been talking about public money this entire episode. Over 75% of that money is on the Rams minus 2.5 there as well. So another little red flag. I've noted 3 or 4 different games now that have public money 75% or more on one specific side. You're right. The Seahawks do need this win, in my opinion, to stay alive in that NL West. But Brett, that NL West is looking, I think, just as good
NFC
as we.
West.
Yes, sorry, NL West. That is baseball. NFC West is football, and Brett, that NFC West is looking just as good as I think we anticipated it. I mean, the only surprise is that the Cardinals are at the top of it right now, and everyone, except for maybe me, thought that they were going to be at the bottom.
Yeah, I would say that's very accurate, Higgins. And AJ Green turning back the clock from, I don't know, 3, 4 years ago. I don't think anyone had that. 2 straight games of 5+ receptions, already has 2 touchdowns on the year. So Cardinals are clicking.
Cardinals are clicking. The NFC West looks as exciting as ever. Should be a great Thursday night game, absolutely. Let's jump to Sunday, though, Brett. We have the Packers traveling to Cincinnati to face off against the Bengals. And this is a line that caught my eye because the Packers are only 3-point favorites. And I'm not entirely sure why, because I understand the Packers lost their first game, and that caused people to be wary about Green Bay to start off because they only scored 3 points. But to me, it's very clear that Aaron Rodgers shook off that offseason rust that he had, and he's back to being Aaron Rodgers again, and he's fine. So I'm going to be backing the Packers -3 here before it even moves potentially greater because -3, I can take the push, but I think this is going to be closer to a 5-point spread, 4-point spread by the time of kickoff. And to be honest, the Bengals still have to prove something to me. I mean, they got wins against Jacksonville, not super impressive. They got wins against Pittsburgh. Divisional game, I'll give them that. But there's been a lot of talk about that Pittsburgh offense and whether Big Ben can really man that and lead them down the field anymore. And then the other win they have is against the Minnesota Vikings, and the Vikings have honestly been rather disappointing to everybody else this season. So I'm not so sure that the Bengals 3-1 record is indicative of a 3-1 team. The Packers are also a 3-1 team, and I believe in them more, so I'm going to be backing them on the spread.
Yeah, makes sense to me. Higgins, here's an interesting game that I'm going to find myself on, and I'll explain why it's interesting here in a second. But the Eagles travel to Carolina to take on the Panthers. Panthers actually made news on Wednesday, adding Stephon Gilmore, formerly of the Patriots. He will not be ready anywhere near in time for this one. He's got 2 or 3 more weeks where he's got to sit out, Higgins. But that's not why I'm picking the Panthers here. Panthers have looked good. Eagles have looked mediocre at best. But Higgins, here's what caught my eye about this game. I saw you did a great job filling out the rundown, and you have in Oregon, Carolina -3.5 at -105, Philly at +3.5 at -115. Well, that seems to imply that by Sunday, I could get a 4 on Carolina. But then I go over to these East Coast New Jersey sports books, and would you look at this? It is exactly flipped, Higgins. The Carolina Panthers at -3.5 or -115, and Philadelphia at +3.5 is -105. That implies that this could move to a 3 here on the East Coast. So, Higgins, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to send you a nice little Venmo, my friend, and have you place that number -3.5 with that little -105 there instead of that ugly -115 for me. And, we'll just keep that one quiet between us.
I like it. I mean, we're splitting hairs with the -105 to -115, but we talk about line shopping. We talk about the importance of finding that best value, and that's exactly what you just did there. I mean, New Jersey, it's just right across the river from Philadelphia, so maybe that influenced the book a little bit, but I'm not really sure how, to be honest, because it seems like Philadelphia is getting a little more love on the West Coast than they are on the East Coast as of right now. So I'll help you out there. I'll help you out there and place that for you.
Thanks, man. But yeah, I think Caroline is the side. In all honesty, Higgins, I think the Stephon Gilmore trade even helps in the short term before he gets there. I think when anytime you send the message to your team, hey guys, we're competing this year. Like we're in it. Like we're a 3-1 football team. We added a piece. We lost J.C. Horn, whatever it was, 2 weeks ago. We traded for a cornerback. Now we've added a former defensive player of the year to our roster. Yeah, I think that sends a good message to your team. I've liked what the offense looks like with Joe Brady and Sam Darnold. DJ Moore looks like a top 5 receiver in football this year. So I think it's a good side to be on. Obviously, single game, anything can happen. Jalen Hurts looked really good last week against Kansas City. So, not trying to knock anything that Philadelphia is doing, just buying in a little more to what Carolina is doing, I think, Higgins.
I think that should be an interesting game for sure. Uh, a game that intrigues me, Brett, is the Titans versus the Jaguars because as a Jets fan, you should know the Titans had a pretty surprising and rough week last week. They lost in overtime to the Jets in something that the sports books had to eat on because can't imagine there were a ton of bets on the Jets upsetting Derrick Henry and those Titans, but there are now quite the questions and concerns surrounding that Titans defense and whether they are able to actually help this team get some wins. I think personally, traveling to Jacksonville and facing off against the Jaguars is the perfect bounce back, confidence building opportunity for that defense to help the Tennessee Titans not only get a win, but get a decent sized win. And this spread is only at -4. I don't buy it. I think the Titans win by 7 points. I think that the Titans are going to bounce back here against the Jaguars, are going to straighten things out, and they're going to be able to turn the season around, get back to 3-2, get back to having a winning record. So Titans -4 here. Now, this may be a trap game as well, like the Michigan-Nebraska game that we were talking about earlier, Brett, because nearly 90% of the public money is on the Titans right now. But I'm finding it at -4. It looks like it's at -4.5 already at some books, so I'm going to take it at -4 while it's there.
Yeah, I think that would be the side I would be on as well, Higgins. I cannot imagine all the meetings going on in Jacksonville this week not regarding football won't have any impact on how this team plays on Sunday. Not to say, they won't fight and play tough, but yeah, if I saw reports AJ Brown's back at practice for the Titans, which is obviously important. I don't know if I saw anything about Julio today. I'll have to double check that. But
I have him on
uh,
a fantasy team. He did get upgraded to questionable, so there is potential that he plays this week.
okay, yeah, I'm curious what he was listed on the practice report today. I know AJ Brown was, participated in practice, which is a huge step up from last week. So, as you get those guys back, Higgins, I'm sure that will help contribute to the Titans' offense. But yeah, I think you're definitely onto something here. I would not be betting on the Jacksonville Jaguars anytime soon. But Higgins, a bad team that I want to bet on this week, the other 0-4 team, the Detroit Lions. They take on the Minnesota Vikings, who are 1-3 on the year, Higgins. Detroit currently plus 8.5, but Minnesota minus 8.5 is at minus 115 here on the East Coast at 11 o'clock on a Wednesday night, Higgins. So I have pretty good confidence that this line might get up to the 9.5 range within the next 4 days here. And I'm going to hold off on betting it. But if you see Detroit north of 9 points, Higgins, I would highly recommend to any of our listeners they pounce because I will be pouncing as well. So, again, Minnesota here minus 8.5, minus 115 on the East Coast. So right now it would be Detroit plus 8.5, minus 105. But I strongly anticipate that moving much closer to 9 as almost every single sports book here in New Jersey has it juiced towards Minnesota.
Yeah, and it's the second biggest spread of the week behind only Tampa Bay and Miami. But Brett, if I'm being honest about this Detroit Minnesota game, I'm not as confident that this is going to be as widespread of a game. Detroit may be an 0-4 team, but that offense has shown more life than I think it's shown in recent years, especially with Jared Goff at the helm. I think the Goff Stafford trade has worked out tremendously for both teams, even though the Lions don't have a win to prove it yet. I wouldn't be surprised if they were to necessarily pull off a shock factor and travel to Minnesota and get a win. It was a money line dog that I was looking at as I was filling out the rundown. I was like, that's interesting. I'm not going to take it. I'm not going to back it necessarily. I mean, I'm definitely not jumping on the spread. I'm not going to disrespect our pillars like that. But that money line, that dog of a money line, it was speaking to me a little bit.
Plus 300 was talking to you, Higgins. Okay. Well, we'll see where you are on Sunday morning.
Absolutely. One last game I want to talk about from Sunday's slate, though, Brett, and maybe it's the homer in me speaking, the Giants fan coming out a little bit, but the Giants travel down to Dallas to face off against the Cowboys, and I'm gonna be fading the Cowboys. Giants plus 7. I wouldn't be surprised if this is exactly a 7 point game because if you look at recent history with the Giants and the Dallas Cowboys, there does happen to be a tendency of it being a last second drive touchdown win or within a single score game. But typically, this is not a blowout between these two teams. There is something that, regardless of the quality of both these teams, they show up and they put on an absolute rivalry matchup that is competitive throughout. So, 7 points, I think that might be a little high. Do I expect the Giants to win? No. But I think that 7 points might be a little high, especially with the Giants coming off of a win on the road in New Orleans. I wouldn't be surprised to see this be competitive. Maybe Dak leads them down for a game-winning drive at the end. That's a touchdown that would end up beating this spread and make it a two-score game. But I personally think that this is going to be a close game. I think it's going to come down to the wire at the end. And Giants plus 7, it's just too big for me to ignore, even as a fan that tries really hard to not bet with his heart.
Yeah, I'm not gonna say anything about this one, Higgins. I know there's a little Homer love in there. And look, I hope it's a competitive game. I hope the Giants can build on what they did last week, where, the offense looked pretty good. Kenny Galladay was involved a lot. Kadarius Toney got involved. John Ross, the free agent signing, got involved. So, that was John Ross's first game. Obviously, he came off like some injured list, or maybe it was COVID list. I'm not sure. You'd probably have a better idea than me. But, um, yeah, Cowboys cut a linebacker on Tuesday, I believe. Jalen Smith, former second round pick. They just outright waived him. So, it'll be an interesting one for sure. I would guess if I had to be on a side, like gun to my head, Higgins, I'd probably lean Dallas on this one, but this one didn't even entice me. To be honest, I was not even looking at this game. I was like, I have no interest in betting Cowboys and Giants.
It's one of those rivalry games that a lot of times smart bettors will seem to stay away from a rivalry that typically has this much emotion attached to it on either side. I mean, same thing with the Red Sox Yankees. It was probably smart money to stay away from that line on Tuesday night, right?
Well, I guess it worked out for me because I probably would have found myself on the Yankees.